50 years of 12. The Newswatch 12 50th Anniversary Special.
The year is 1966. Full-color RCA television sets start to become popular as networks begin broadcasting in full living color.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
I do remember the first time I ever saw color TV at a household, not very far, just across the river from our station here in that part of town. It was on a New Year's Day evening, and I was able to watch part of the Orange Bowl on color television.
On October 17, 1966, NBC began broadcasting all news programming in full color. 3 days later, on October 20th, 1966, WAEO Channel 12 signs on for the first time, and Rhinelander, Wisconsin becomes the smallest city in the country to have a full-color TV station.
This was one of the first color stations that went on the air here.
How did little Rhinelander, Wisconsin come to have a full-color, network-affiliated TV station? Let's rewind a little bit. Enter Alvin E. representing Wisconsin's old 10th Congressional District.
Good morning, my friends. I'm happy and proud and honored to be with you on this very important occasion.
Representative Okonski owned a newspaper in Hurley and radio stations in Merrill and Wausau, and he recognized the need for a local television station to serve northern Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula. The Channel 12 spectrum space had previously been allocated to the Hurley-Ironwood area, but no one had shown interest in using it. Okonski had a construction permit to build a Channel 12 station in Hurley, but he looked farther south to build. In January 1965, the FCC authorized Okonski to construct the station in Rhinelander instead of Ironwood, Michigan. In his request for a permit, Okonski called Rhinelander the focal point of all activities in northern Wisconsin and would be an ideal focal point of all activities for a television station in an area which is largely unserved. He picked a location in rural Oneida County, just east of Rhinelander in the town of Stella, a little west of Starks. Construction of the tower and studio began in early 1966. When the station signed on in October, Rhinelander was not only one of the smallest cities to have a TV station, but now also had one of the tallest structures in the world. The 1,707-foot tower was one of the tallest radiating television transmission sites in 17 Midwestern states. Taller than the Eiffel Tower or Empire State Building, Channel 12's tower signal reached Houghton Hancock on the north shore of the Upper Peninsula and south to Stevens Point and Wapaka.
I was 16 years old when, at that time, WAEO TV came on the air, and that was a big thing in Rhinelander. It made you feel just a little bit like, well, hoo-hoo, you know, we've arrived.
Channel 12 reached 230,000 TV homes from the heart of the North, and the station call letters were named for Alvin E. Okonski, WAEO.
Congressman Okonski even had an apartment in the complex at that time. When he'd come to Rhinelander, that's where he stayed, him and his wife. And I'd get there on a Saturday afternoon, and there'd be an engineer and a cameraman, and the weather, Susan, the weather lady, and Ken, myself. That was it.
Maybe 14 or 17 total, and just the whole station, engineers. We all knew each other. There was one art director.
I clearly remember growing up in St. Germain, watching cartoons in the late afternoon, and we only had access to one station at the time, and that was Channel 12. And I would watch the cartoons, and periodically my cartoons would be interrupted, and the congressman would come on and he'd say, "Kiddies, I'm so sorry to interrupt your cartoons, but please go get your mommy and daddy and tell them that the congressman has something very important to tell them." And that was his constituent relations at the time, which didn't strike me as constituent relations. It struck me at the time as someone who was taking away my cartoons for the afternoon.
We were inventing things as we went along.
The first thing I remember about watching Channel 12 was the fact that it was so relaxed and laid back. And that the early newscasters, actually one of them sat in like a Barcalounger and delivered the news while smoking a pipe.
In the early days, the newscasts were divided into 3 blocks: news, sports, and weather.
When I was asked to be a weather girl, I didn't know a darn thing about the weather. I didn't know a low pressure area from a high pressure area. But I also love learning. So I went to the Rhinelander Public Library and I pulled out all the books I could on weather. And I found the best books in the end were children's books on the weather because they explained it in simple ways. And every time I learned something, I would then bring it back to my weather show and say, I learned something new today, about low pressure areas, and I explain it. And that's why we get rain from the south or whatever. And I think people really liked that. I never pretended to know anything. I just learned as I went. And I did such a successful job in the end that they gave me the hour-long show at noon to co-host and to produce. I produced it all.
I was a newscaster. I did the news, I wrote the stories, and I was there for approximately 2 years when the airplane came along and took the tower down. And that was the end of my broadcasting career.
On Sunday, November 17, 1968, at approximately 3 p.m., a small plane carrying 3 Michigan hunters hit a guy wire on the tower, sending the tower crashing down onto the studio. The building was destroyed. 2 employees in the building at the time were injured. The 3 hunters flying home from their hunting camp in Paulding, Michigan, were killed.
I heard something hit the roof. So I said, ice, snow. It was in the fall, hunting season. And I said, by God, she's coming down. And I dove with my head down by them lower steps. And a rack fell across me. And when I stood up, I touched the tower base, 12, 14-inch base on the bottom. And it went right through the whole building, knocked down a 55-foot ceiling for the studio. The glass broke as I dove. My right arm was kind of numb at the time. So I got up and I called the police, I called the fire department.
There were fire trucks and ambulances and there were a lot of people around, squad cars all over the place. Yeah, it was a madhouse for a while.
Everyone turned into looky-loos that day and wanted to drive out to Stark's, and all we were able to see was a bunch of twisted metal.
And I got there, and here the tower was inside the building, and Congressman Okonski was there, and I asked him if he was going to rebuild, and at that time, he told me he wasn't sure, but eventually he did.
We were kind of excited when we did find out that, yes, he was going to rebuild, and the station was going to be located in Rhinelander, and he'd be microwaving the signal out to the tower.
Okonski rebuilt the tower, 13 feet taller than the original, and a new studio was built on County Trunk G, just south of the Rhinelander city limits on what was known at the time as Musson Mountain.
How about a solid year to put it back on the air? I was in charge of doing it. So I went with GE. We got all the equipment throughout the year, and it took almost a year to put us on the air.
Channel 12 signed back on September 1st, 1969. In 1973, Okonski started negotiations to sell the station, a year after he was defeated by Representative David Obey when his district was abolished by reapportionment. In 1977, the FCC charged the station for extending local commercials into network time and for not filing accurate reports. Okonski admitted mistakes were made, and in a Rhinelander Daily News interview stated, quote, "We have made serious errors because we are the smallest market in America and our income is limited. We're forced to conduct business with a staff of 1/3 the people of an ordinary station. All our help are inexperienced beginners." It was a controversial time for the station. In 1979, Channel 12 was sold to Seaway Communications.
WAEO became the first minority-owned VHF network-affiliated station in the country.
5 years later, Seaway's founder, Dr. Jasper F. Williams, died in a plane crash. The station's call letters were changed to WJFW in his memory in October 1986. Seaway owned Channel 12 for almost 20 years, and in 1998 sold the station to Rockfleet Broadcasting.
Fit the profile I was looking for, very attractive, smaller markets where the station could be a dominant factor in that marketplace and where we could make some changes to improve the economics of the business in line with the rest of the industry. They were clearly underperforming stations.
Rockfleet Broadcasting's first order of business was to replace the station's 30-year-old transmitter and purchase a Grass Valley production switcher. That switcher was replaced 10 years later because, as we all know, technology changes fast.
I remember it was even in the days before we had video cameras. So we'd go out with a 100-foot Bell & Howell film camera to do a little story. And we had to do it on the 100 feet without sound.
100 feet of 16mm film equals 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Almost all the footage of the reporters filmed in the 60s and 70s went on the air.
We feel bad about losing it, and we just hope that we get it back.
How much water do you need to actually navigate?
2 to 3 inches should take care of the navigation.
Before a story went on air, reporters had to process the film and then cut the film into segments and splice it back together to form the story.
We were shooting film at the time, we were editing film, everything took a lot longer, so things were less immediate.
After 16mm film, the news gathering world moved to tape, a new technology that came with its own set of advantages and disadvantages.
There's a huge tape deck, huge camera, you know, the cord, the umbilical cord that goes from the deck to the camera.
We have these very large cameras and a large camera bag to go along with it. And it felt like about 50 pounds.
Lots of heavy batteries, big giant tapes.
And so you would carry that all over the place. I dragged that thing through the, mud. I've gone through the woods.
Quickly, technology improved. Video cameras recorded to tapes housed inside the camera. And today, video is recorded as digital video files on small SD cards.
There were constant changes, and sometimes in the moment, it didn't seem like it was happening fast, but when you look back, you can't believe all that happened in such a short amount of time.
As the recording formats became smaller, the cameras became smaller, now weighing less than 3 pounds. Small GoPro action cameras give reporters different angles and the ability to shoot video from places they never could before.
Ice.
Today, reporters can edit their stories quicker than before using editing software right on their computer or laptop.
Every minute counts. But thanks to a gift of wings.
In the early days of television, weather forecasters used magnetic boards and physical displays.
Compared to the old days, back in the 50s and 60s when they used magnets and chalk to present the weather, now we're using computers and a lot of technology. And that's really made things a lot easier, not only in forecasting the weather, but also being able to present it.
Over the last 10 or 15 years, television meteorology has made some dramatic improvements.
Chroma key technology changed how weather was presented in the late 70s and early 80s.
The chroma key originally started out using blue, but then they found out so many clothes had blue in it that they went to green because less clothing has green elements in it.
Meteorologists stood in front of a studio wall as control room operators keyed weather images behind them.
At the time, we weren't making graphics. It was really waiting for that NBC weather feed to come down at 2:30.
They're put on a videotape, and then I have to take the videotape and edit the satellite pictures together in the order that I want them to be.
In-house, it would really be putting temperatures in, putting the forecast pages together.
There is a tornado watch for the entire TV12 viewing area.
Now with this WSI system, it's so much more technologically advanced that we can really zoom into specific roads and specific lakes so you can see different landmarks on our maps and be able to tell people, hey, this storm's going to affect these roads, these county roads, even side streets. And so.
In 2012, Channel 12 made the switch from standard definition to high definition, the first in the market to go full HD. Viewers got a larger, clearer picture of their Northwoods news.
On Lincoln Street in Rhinelander, Ben Meyer, Newswatch 12.
Advances in wireless technology make it possible for reporters to do live reports from anywhere they can find a good cell phone signal.
Handy is the winner here in downtown Rhinelander for the parade.
Small live view backpack systems transmit the video and audio from the field to the station's control room. Channel 12's control rooms have also seen significant changes in technology. The news control room used to house multiple switchers, tape decks, racks, and monitors.
We're looking for a way to take the burden off directors and get everything down into one box so we didn't have multiple devices to have to operate to get the news on the air.
Every story in a newscast was recorded on a separate tape by the reporters. Master control operators would load the tapes into separate decks, and the director would cue them when to start rolling each tape.
Very inefficient and added to a lot of mistakes on the air.
Today, reporters save their stories as digital video files and transfer them over a network to the switcher computer. Stories are played with a click of a mouse.
2, stand by.
The master control room is where the on-air broadcast is switched from NBC network programs to local news, commercials, and programming. Like news stories, local commercials and programming were also recorded and played back on tape.
They had 2 racks worth of tape machines that they would literally load by hand.
Today, everything is digital, and each day's programming looks like an iTunes playlist.
And it just pulls the file and plays the file. There's no more tapes. We have no more tapes in the building.
The process of gathering and broadcasting news has been simplified with new and better technology, but the objective is still the same.
The fact that this tower was built so tall and it could reach so far, the value that they were going to try and push was, we're the only people who actually can provide service at that time to big, broad areas of northern Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula.
Congressman Alvin stated that he started Channel 12 because that is what his constituents desired, a local television station to give local news and weather. When Channel 12 signed on 50 years ago, the first mission was to serve the up north communities.
And I think that holds true today, is that who else is going to take a camera out and do news from some of the more remote communities that we go to, every day? And the answer is nobody. We're going to do that. And so we are the news from where you live. And the news from where you live is really pretty good.
I think the more memorable stories that really touched me are probably what I would just call an everyday story that turned out to be amazing.
I've had a number of stories that have been really wonderful and have left a mark on my heart.
I liked the weird stories, anything that was off the beaten track.
We're covering a lot of the same stuff that was covered here in 1966 or 1976 or 1986, and because those are the things that are the fabric of our life here.
If you're a snowmobile fan, this is where you want to be.
Race in Rhinelander when it was the Hodag. Wow. Yes, I was about 10 or 12 years old.
In the communities WJFW serves, reporters have the opportunity to share more stories about the good things people do in the area. Yet everyone is ready for when hard news happens.
In the early 80s, the off-reservation rights of the Chippewa to hunt, gather, harvest fish, etc., was a national story. We had a ton of media up here all the time.
I think the biggest thing that happened during my tenure, unfortunately, was the shooting that took place in Crandon.
And the suspect is Forest County Deputy Tyler Peterson.
There are 6 deceased inside that residence.
All the national media kind of converged on Crandon.
It seems that Crandon would be the last place where a shooting would take place.
What we have done over the past years is increase the amount of local programming, increase the amount of news programming of various types.
I don't think there was a morning show before I started. I think it was just cut-ins, and that's completely different now. Morning news is so important. It's 20-some years ago, it was kind of an afterthought.
In 2005, the morning news expanded from a 30-minute show to an hour-long show.
Wake up, Northwoods.
Newswatch 12 Today currently airs from 5:30 to 7 a.m.
Thank you so much for waking up right here at 5:59.
The votes are in, and you chose Newswatch 12 Midday.
The midday news at 11 a.m. was added in 2011. Up North at 4 was added in 2015 and gives more time to people in the community who want to talk about their events and no-profit groups. Supporting local organizations and sponsoring local events has also been a priority at WJFW.
End of Channel 12 News, I'd like to make a contribution, $2 for the band.
I remember to this day was Elijah Pitt's safety for the Green Bay Packers did a telethon at Channel 12, and I was involved with it. They were doing a telethon for cerebral palsy at the time.
Many viewers who have watched Channel 12 over the years can remember the MDA telethon, where money was raised locally for Jerry's Kids and the Muscular Dystrophy Association.
6 phones open. We're not going to get to 207,000 with 6 phones open.
Sometime in the mid-1970s, I looked up and I was watching the CBS Evening News, and I go, That's Susie Peters. She was on Channel 12.
Susan Peterson started her career at Channel 12 in 1967 as Susie Sunshine, the weather girl.
My first news story was here in Rhinelander, and it was a golden retriever who delivered mail with the postman.
And then moved on to become the first female foreign correspondent for CBS News, where she covered political and economic events in Europe and the Middle East.
Turn to Newswatch 12 and Mike Mahalik. Thank you, Tom. From Rhinelander to Wausau to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
I was the news director, I was the sports director, I was the head meteorologist, I was the toilet cleaner. I did absolutely everything around there.
Channel 12 has always had a knack for acquiring quality talent to the market.
In this market, Melissa Langman's been at Channel 9 for over 25 years. Susan Simon in Madison, tremendous talent. Mike Heller in sports. I mean, this is a guy that sits in for Dan Patrick at ESPN.
I think Channel 12 gave me a really unique opportunity to be a part of so many people's careers, certainly more directly as a news director because I hired a lot of people. It scares me to even think about counting how many.
We're one of the best, if not the best, teaching shop in the country. Anyone coming out the door was grade A prime beef going into a bigger market.
The community has always been, I think, very tolerant about the fact that, boy, they have an awful lot of really young, green people on the air there, but they all get better, and it's fun to watch them get better.
As we all know, the Northwoods is a great place to live, work, and play, and as people's career paths change, their addresses don't always.
I wish I could say it's the station and the beautiful area, and those are all true, but it's love. The people who have stayed here, whether they're still at the station or have left, fell in love up here.
I had no idea what I was in store for when I took this job. When I came here, I was single. I signed up for an adventure. It was a second career for me, so I thought, you know, let's just do it, let's take a risk. And now, 15 years later, I'm still here in the Northwoods. I have an incredible husband, 2 beautiful little girls, and a wonderful life.
I love days like today, except it's a little humid, but I love the seasons, I love the change of things. I love the people that can get involved in things and do things and are willing to roll up their sleeves and do it.
Seeing those smiles when they come in, when they're on the water, hands up in the air, screaming, squealing with joy, that's what it's all about, I think.
A live on-the-air surprise on the anchorwoman. Her boyfriend is about to walk on camera.
We're wrapping up, doing weather, and all of a sudden...
Play some music or something.
Are we still on the air? I don't think it's going on.
Oh, yeah, at least a little bit.
I'm thinking, what are you doing? You know by now how this works. You can't be up here yet.
Everyone, this is Jerry.
My boy. Oh my God. Yes! Oh my God! So all of a sudden, when he got down on one knee, I felt like the light bulb went off and I knew what was happening and I just couldn't believe it. We're done here, folks, and I'm getting married.
Live television is just that, live. You never know what's going to happen.
Ahead on Saturday night.
Okay, Martin, you're not going to sleep over.
Oh.
I mean, oversleep.
We didn't have automatic teleprompters.
Dan Venetia would tape the scripts, the paper scripts together in a long line.
And if they got ahead of you or behind, so did you.
Oh, the teleprompter.
And then if they didn't feed perfectly into the teleprompter,
it would go off kilter.
Sometimes it would jiggle, sometimes it would just fly by.
Trying to tell Dan, the prompter's off, the pages are crazy.
And I'd have to run back there and straighten it up.
The video wasn't working, so I had to do the commercial live, and it was a motorcycle commercial. So I had to get off the set and get on the motorcycle, and when I swung over the motorcycle, I ripped my pants, so I couldn't get up the rest of the newscast.
Like news, commercials were first shot on film when they were done on location.
That's down at Schuett's.
And transitioned to tape.
Parts.
Today, commercials are shot on location using digital video cameras. Special effects, graphics, music, and voiceover are added during the editing process.
Advertising, while it seems self-serving when I talk about it being our economic source of revenue to pay bills, in point of fact, it does work. It works wonderfully, and it stimulates business in the local community.
Many local advertisers have been around as long as Newswatch 12. Tomahawk Sports Center celebrates 50 years in business this year. Mel's Trading Post, Carlson Funeral Home, and Fourth Floral have been in business and in the same family for more than 50 years, just to name a few. Newswatch 12's mission today is the same as it has always been.
Local, local, local.
Today's multimedia journalist has better technology that's a little easier to work with. And so we send them out the door each day going, we'd like you to do 2, maybe 3 stories a day.
In the summer of 2016, Newswatch 12 brought you full newscasts live from locations across the area.
During our long summer weekends here in Vilas County.
Some of these places are very small and, you know, not highly populated, but the people there are doing interesting things.
Now local news and weather goes beyond the television. Newswatch 12 is available on more platforms. Newscasts are streamed live, and viewers can watch their local news from anywhere on WJFW.com.
A vacationer who owns a home here in Eagle River and is living in Chicago during the winter can watch our local news and find out what's going on here.
The WJFW mobile app and the weather app, also nicknamed WAP, give you access to news and weather forecasts on your smartphone or tablet.
The notion that the new generation is getting used to watching our news programs on their iPad or on their iPhone is a phenomenon that I can't think of anybody that even envisioned that 15 and 20 years ago.
There was an odd set of circumstances that allowed the third network station in the Wausau TV market to be in Rhinelander and turned that into the Wausau Rhinelander market. As someone who grew up in Rhinelander and considered it to be a magical place, I think it's perfectly sensible that we would have a TV station and that we would have the good fortune to have one. And I hope that everybody else in the community feels that it's a good fortune that they have one.
Everybody was very proud to be part of this station, and so I feel very honored that I was also part of it as well.
The experience and stuff has been priceless, and it all started here.
What a wonderful opportunity I had, and the fact that people took me into their homes and their living rooms every night to deliver the news. We certainly valued that trust, and I know the station still does today.
Newswatch 12 thanks the community for supporting us for the past 50 years. We look forward to what the next 50 years has in store. New people, new technology, and new ways to bring you the most local news, weather, and sports coverage from where you live.